Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking dense educational assessment theory and turning it into an ultimate, practical blueprint for becoming the ideal language teacher. If you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by all that testing jargon, or kind of wondered if your quizzes are actually helping your students learn, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to completely reframe how you think about testing. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to hit 1. The ideal teacher mindset. 2. When and what to assess. 3. The PRVAW Quality Framework. 4. Assessing the 3 modes. And finally wrap up with 5. Rubrics, feedback, and failure. All right, first things first, forget being purely practical for a second. You got to adopt this mindset. Forget reasonable. Think ideal. Literally, be the Energizer Bunny. When you step into the role of the ideal teacher, you aren't just handing out tests because it's a Friday. No way. You are this energizing force. You believe every single student can learn, you never humiliate them, and you are constantly gathering data to make your next lesson way better than your last. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the ideal teacher mindset. So look at the difference here. Think of assessment as checking your GPS while you're actually driving. You're gathering info continuously to help students improve, adjust their route, and actually reach the destination. Evaluation, that's the final parking job. It's that rigid, final judgment on whether the work was good or bad. The ideal teacher assesses constantly. They never ever wait for the summative evaluation on a unit test to find out if their students are just completely lost. Moving right along to Section 2, when and what to assess. Testing is really a chronological journey. First up, diagnostic testing, like a quick day 1 survey before instruction even begins. You have to find out what they already know. Never teach what they already know, and definitely don't skip what they don't. Then, right in the thick of it, comes formative assessment. These are your quick exit tickets and daily quizzes during learning. They let you adjust your instruction on the fly. Finally, summative assessment. Think final exams or big projects. This is to measure mastery after the learning is totally complete. The ideal teacher uses all 3, in that exact order, every single unit. Now, here's a crucial point. Your classroom tests should absolutely be criterion referenced. You're measuring mastery against a set standard, not norm referenced, which just compares kids on a bell curve. Think of it this way. A norm reference test is like the SAT. It's literally built to tell you who's above or below average. But a criterion reference test, that's your driver's license exam. The DMV doesn't care how well the guy in the car next to you drives. They only care if you can parallel park without wiping out the cones. In your classroom, you only want to know if your students hit the standard you taught. Which brings us to Section 3. The PRVAW Quality Framework. You're going to want to keep this 5-point PWRVAW cheat sheet in your back pocket to ensure every assessment actually works. First, practicality. Just ask yourself, can I actually grade this without losing my mind? Next, reliability. Would a student get the exact same score if a completely different teacher graded it? Then validity, which asks if the test measures what it claims to. Authenticity. Would a native speaker ever actually do this in the real world? And finally, Washback. Does taking this test actually improve the student's future learning? Out of all those criteria, validity is the absolute non-negotiable king. Simply put, validity is the degree to which an assessment measures exactly what it claims to measure. If a test isn't valid, literally nothing else matters. You could have the most beautifully formatted, incredibly reliable, super authentic assessment in the world. But if it doesn't measure the exact skill you're trying to test, it's useless, completely useless to the ideal teacher. And honestly, it is incredibly easy to accidentally test the wrong thing. Check this out. Say your goal is verb conjugation, but you deduct points because they misspelled a pronoun. Boom, you're suddenly testing spelling. Invalid. Or maybe you want to test speaking ability, but you give them a written grammar test. Totally invalid. Or you want to assess cultural understanding, deep perspectives and practices, but you just have them memorize historical dates. The test is completely broken. All right, Section 4, assessing the 3 modes. You absolutely have to assess these 3 modes separately. Why? Because a student might perfectly interpret a written text, but just completely freeze up in a spontaneous interpersonal role play. Interpretive mode is all about understanding input, reading a real menu, or listening to a weather forecast. Interpersonal is that 2-way real-time exchange, like ordering food from a waiter, and presentational is 1-way output, like giving a speech. If you only ever assess their reading, you actually have no idea if they can hold a real conversation. And here is a constant tension you've got to balance: fluency versus accuracy. Demanding perfect accuracy from a total novice, that's just going to make them shut down and stop trying entirely. But ignoring accuracy in advanced learners, that's going to cement their bad habits forever. Fluency is just getting the message across. If a beginner points at a menu and says, "Me wants Hako," they communicated. Celebrate that. Prioritize fluency early on. But as they get more advanced, doing formal presentational writing, you've got to shift focus to accuracy, correct grammar, and real precision. To keep pushing their proficiency, you have to walk them right up Bloom's taxonomy. You're elevating them from simple fact recall all the way to designing entirely new language outputs. Look, you start your novices at the bottom, remembering facts, understanding basic concepts. But you can't just keep giving them matching quizzes all year. You have to push them to apply that knowledge, analyze why a mistake was made, evaluate a complex opinion, and ultimately hit step 6, creating a new dialogue or story completely from scratch. Let's dive into our final section, Section 5, Rubrics, Feedback, and Failure. When choosing your grading weapon here, think of holistic scoring like looking at a single star. It gives you one overall score evaluating general communication effectiveness. It's the big picture. Analytic scoring, though, is like taking apart a pocket watch to look at the individual gears. It's broken down into specific parts like grammar and vocab. So if they write a real-world email and you just want to see if the overall message makes sense, go holistic. But if you need to find exactly where their writing is breaking down, use an analytic rubric. Oh, and a pro tip for the ideal teacher: always give them the rubric before the project starts, never after. Okay, let's do a quick data breakdown because understanding your class data requires knowing the difference between these three. The mean is your standard mathematical average, great for most general grading. But the median, the exact middle score, that is your best friend if one student gets a total 0 and artificially drags the whole class average down. And the mode just tells you the most frequently occurring score. Knowing these three ensures you're actually analyzing your overall classroom performance accurately and not getting thrown off by weird outliers. Now, when you're delivering those results back to the students, never just say, "Good job," or "Needs work." If you do, they have literally no idea what to do next. Your feedback is totally incomplete unless it answers these 3 actionable questions. What did I do wrong? Why was it wrong? And how do I fix it? You need to say something like, "Hey, you used the preterite tense correctly here, but you missed the imperfect tense over here because you were describing the past. Next time, try using the imperfect for background descriptions. Tell them exactly what broke, why it broke, and how to fix it." So what exactly do you do when the entire class fails your test? Because eventually you will face this worst-case scenario. You gave a seemingly great exam, and everybody just bombed it. It happens to all of us. But the absolute worst thing you can do, the exact opposite of the ideal teacher, is to just record those terrible grades, tell the students they should have studied harder, and blindly move on to the next chapter. The ideal teacher never ever just records the low grades and moves on. Look, if 80% of your class misses question number 7, that's not a student failure. That is an assessment failure. Here's your action plan. Step 1, identify those missed questions. Step 2, pull them entirely from the grade so they don't unfairly penalize anyone. Step 3, reteach the concept totally differently tomorrow. And step 4, reassess to make sure they actually got it. Ultimately, we have to ask ourselves this final, provocative question. Are your assessments actually teaching while they test? Or are they just a trap at the end of the road? That's the whole idea of Washback. A test shouldn't be a gotcha moment. It should be an experience where the student walks away understanding the language better than when they sat down. When you truly adopt the ideal teacher mindset, testing isn't the end of learning. It's just the launch pad for what comes next.